King 5 News is up next.
Is another serial arsonist on the loose, this time on the east side?
Boeing and union negotiators ask for help in contract talks.
And as George Idris says goodbye to the Mariners, the Seahawks say hello to another win.
Live from Seattle, this is King 5 News with David Curley, Joyce Taylor, Lou Gellis, and Rich Marion.
Good evening. A string of overnight arson fires in Bellevue has investigators wondering if there is any connection to a rash of Seattle arsons. 2 Bellevue businesses were set ablaze and a house that was under construction burned to the ground. Damage is estimated at more than $100,000. Here's more from Linda Kennedy.
The first fire was next to the Standard Brands paint store at Northeast 24th and 146th Northeast. Pallets and trash were ignited. But the real damage was to this storage container. It held thousands of dollars worth of carpet. Total damage, $7,000. Then just half an hour later and about a mile and a half away at North Coast Electric, another arson fire. Same conditions. This time, along with the pallets, some very expensive plastic pipe was destroyed. Total damage, $25,000. But by far the worst of the 3 fires and the most devastating was the destruction of this nearly completed house at Southeast 5th and 98th Southeast above Maidenbower Bay. The house was almost finished, enclosed, with some siding, and the roof was on. Marlene Gross lives next door.
I ran out in the living room and out the front door, and there was just a huge ball of fire. It was huge.
The Bellevue Fire Department says all 3 fires may have been set by the same person.
At this point, the only reason that you could draw that conclusion is just 3 of them in one night, which is obviously is something that's going to tend to draw that conclusion. But as far as any evidence, we're still going through all 3 of the fires and gathering evidence, and at this point there's nothing specifically that says yes.
Bellevue arson investigators will compare notes with Seattle fire officials since there are similarities between the weekend fires and several unsolved arsons in North Seattle. In Bellevue, Linda Kennedy, King 5 News.
Some residents of an apartment building must think one of their neighbors is a hero this afternoon. He raced through their burning building, getting people out, and then became trapped himself. He jumped from the 3rd floor, suffering a broken arm and back injuries. His name has not been released. About 2:30 this morning, the fire broke out in the Seattle apartment house in the Riverton Heights area. It started in one of the lower apartments in the 24-unit building. 5 units were fully involved when firefighters arrived. Investigators say the fire was started by a baseboard heater. It ignited furniture and blew out the window, then spread to the story above. The wood frame building burned rapidly, and all 12 units damaged by fire, 50 people temporarily evacuated.
We woke up, we heard someone yelling fire, didn't know what was going on, and I grabbed her. I walked downstairs and looked around the corner, and this whole building right here, all 3 floors were involved. And it was just flaming out, coming through the windows and coming up the fire wells and everything. It was spreading fast. But we were one of the lucky ones that didn't get torched. A lot of our friends that we know did, so it's pretty bad.
Firefighters caution people with baseboard heating to place furniture at least 12 inches from the unit and to check batteries on your smoke detector.
A stalemate in the talks between Boeing and union machinists. A federal mediator has now been called in to try and break the deadlock. Unless some kind of progress is made between now and midnight on Tuesday, some 54,000 union members could walk off the jobs. Ginny Musanti reports.
As bargaining continued inside the Westin Hotel, one man stood vigil outside. Ed Holmes could have been working at the Everett plant today, earning double-time pay. Instead, he chose to come here, hoping he would be noticed and clinging to the belief that one man can make a difference.
After 6 years, we've been given to the company. It's time for the company to give to us.
Union members want raises. The company's offering lump sum bonuses, and the 2 sides are said to be separated on issues involving the benefits package and mandatory overtime. Last night, about 200 union members rallied outside the hotel in a show of concern.
We feel that by not offering us a decent contract, that they're actually wanting us to go out for a while, to give them a chance to catch up on their paperwork and whatever else they might need to do.
Talks continued through the night, but the marathon bargaining session proved frustrating. When negotiations reached a standstill early this morning, a federal mediator was called in, and previously outspoken union leaders stopped talking. The current union contract expires at midnight Tuesday. Unless progress is made between now and then, the union could call a strike. Ed Holmes says if that happens, everybody loses.
We lose wages and they lose time.
And right now, time is running out. In Seattle, Ginny Musanti, King 5 News.
How much will the Boeing company lose if there is a strike?
Bill Whitlow is an aerospace analyst. He watches the Boeing company. Mr. Whitlow, thanks for joining us. First of all, if the deadline for deliveries actually slides, if there is a strike, would Boeing actually lose any money?
Well, I think it really depends on how long the strike is. The key to Boeing in terms of losing money is whether or not they deliver X number of airplanes in this current year. If the strike lasts long enough that airplanes start to slide from 89 into 90, then they lose the revenue they generate for each one of those airplanes.
So where does it start to hurt the Boeing company? Something after 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Well, I think it's pretty hard to put a number on it. It really depends on how completed, how far along a lot of these airplanes are. But I would think certainly after 2 to 3 weeks, then you get to the point where one can certainly assume that there are going to be several airplanes that don't get delivered this year, and that does start to hurt the company.
In your estimation, do you think that one side or the other is in a position of strength?
Well, I think the workers are probably in a stronger position than they've been in for the last couple of bargaining rounds because Boeing itself has a strong backlog, their balance sheet is strong, things that everyone has talked about. But by the same token, the company has an obligation to their customers and to their shareholders not to give any more than they absolutely have to. They have to maintain their costs as low as they possibly can because they're competing in a worldwide industry, and there will be a downturn at the other end of this cycle. And at that point, the company is going to have the lowest possible costs they can.
We just heard a worker suggest that maybe Boeing wants a strike so it can do maintenance on its buildings and catch up on some paperwork. Does that sound like a viable possibility?
I really don't think so. I think one of the problems is that once a strike starts, then one really doesn't know how long it's going to last. I think that the best solution for Boeing really would be to avoid a strike if that's possible.
Will they strike, yes or no?
That's pretty hard to say. I'd say, if you'd asked me a week ago, I'd say the odds were less than 50-50. Given that we're coming down to the wire, I'd say probably about 50-50 at this point.
Mr. Whitlow, thank you for joining us. And still to come tonight, the 40th anniversary of Chinese communism.
Seattle Artists marks the day with a special work.